Hey, let me wave to you. All right, we're live. Yep. Now I don't hear any echo. Miss Pauline. Hello, Pauline. Hey, Pauline. Hey, Vlad. Hey, Vlad. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things we talked about last week with the contingencies, they're either going to address those or waive those contingencies, which in this market, will most of them will most likely be waived. The appraisal, the mortgage contingency, all of that. Um, and then they're going to determine a closing date between the between the seller's attorney and the buyer's attorney. Um, they'll come up with a deposit amount and the balance due at closing. Sometimes they have a second deposit that they want to also. And once they're both attorneys agree, usually it's a couple of days. You're out of attorney review, and then you move on to the next step in the process.
So once the contract is signed, at least in the case of purchasing a condo or a co-op in New York, what you need is to get the application together. Now, usually a co-op application tends to be pretty robust, meaning they want to usually see tax returns in their entirety for at least 2 years. They want to see previous bank statements. They want to see all of your bank accounts. So just be ready to know that you're going to.
Yeah, that's going to add to the time frame a little bit. Especially when you're dealing with condo association or a co-op particularly. Um, there's really nothing to negotiate there because if you want to live there, you got to abide by what their guidelines are and what the rules they have in place are. So, those aren't going to be things that your attorney's going to negotiate. You just are signing and agreeing and providing whatever documentation they need. From a lending point of view, the lender's going to require documentation from them also particularly insurance. And go ahead. They can't hear me. Oh, no, hold on. I know what I did. Can they hear me now? Jesus.
Okay.
How about now? Can they hear me now? Can you guys hear me now? All right. Well, we'll assume they could hear us.
Okay. I can hear you right now, so that's good. Say something, George.
I'm saying something, Vlad. Can you hear me?
Yes? No, maybe? Maybe we should sing.
I don't know why they can't hear me. Jeez.
This is in a technical. Well, you're.
Oh, okay, good.
I think they didn't want to hear us sing. I have a lousy voice.
Yeah,
I'm
you don't want to hear
of
me
bars.
sing. Thank you.
Loud and clear, great.
Thanks,
So
guys.
I think you were saying something. Were you saying something, or was I saying? You were saying.
Yeah, I was just finishing up. You're going to have to agree to whatever the condo or co-op's terms are. I mean, there's nothing you're going to be able to negotiate there. Um, you know, a lot of times they're going to want documentation from you, and I'm not singing, Vlad. Maybe late at night after a couple of drinks, which isn't too often. Um, and the lender's going to want stuff from like the condo association too. They're going to want to see that they have insurance, that they don't have any lawsuits, stuff like that. So it's just part of the process and one of the steps that you have to go through.
So I think there's a couple of things here that are very important to address. And number one is that, it's a very tedious process to have this board package submitted as perfect as possible. And the reason why that is done is because when you submit a package to, well, usually it's to the management office of the building. Once they review that, they pull the credit, they review all the financials, and then they send it to the board. But if there is any paper that's missing, if there are any questions that arise, and they have to inquire for additional paperwork because either something isn't clear or B, some information is missing, in theory, the 30 days that they have of period to be able to review the application and either accept or deny gets reset. So usually it takes them, a week or two to actually, they confirm that they received the package. It depends on the building and the co-op or condo and what their systems are. And so I'll usually be in touch with like the managing agent and say, hey, we have a package on the way. Kindly confirm results. I have tracking because a lot of times it's by mail, by snail mail. And sometimes there is the additional submission of the paperwork via email or via some portal. Sometimes there isn't. I just may make sure I confirm with the managing agent, and once they receive it, then they usually, in my experience, it's taking about a week for them to actually review it and let me know how it's looking. And then after a week and change, maybe a week and a half, I'll call it, they'll send it to the board for the actual review. So, be patient with your agent and realize I know I've bothered my clients 80 times during a package submission because all the I's have to be dotted, all the T's have to be crossed. Any line that says signature, like let's say you submitted your tax returns via electronically and you didn't have to sign them. Well, you know what? Some boards are really picky and some management companies are really picky and they want to make sure that these documents are signed. So just, please go ahead and sign what was supposed to be signed and realize that as a real estate agent, my job is to make sure that the application is submitted as clean and as clear as possible so that we don't have any delays or any hiccups. And having your documents ready. For example, you're going to need recommendation letters oftentimes from friends, sometimes from employers, sometimes from your landlord, most often from all of the above. So usually what I'll advise my clients is we have 30 days from contract signing to submit this to the board. But I usually try to knock it out like in 2 weeks. So that way I have like a whole week to review it and then I like to turn it in as early as I can. So usually what I'll do is, first thing is ask your referrals to write the letters. And then I provide them with a specific format. So that way it's clear, it's clean, we have it on time. Because when you're asking somebody else to write a letter for you, it's going to take a little time.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like all the documentation and letters and all that goes, um, it really is important to get it all done in the beginning. You don't want to be piecemealing stuff throughout the process. Underwriters don't like that from a lender's point of view. They'd rather see a whole complete package together. Um, it tends to go smoother when that happens, and there tends to be less conditions when you give them a complete package. Um, when you send in piecemeal, it gives them more opportunities to go back and maybe find something that they didn't find before that now becomes a condition and we got to address. So, um, as a borrower, I know it's difficult sometimes because it's a lot of information that's required. Sometimes you need tax returns, W 2s, pay stubs, bank statements, retirement account statements, all of that. But the sooner you could get it all together at once, um, and like Carolina said, any recommendation letters, all of that. There's letters of explanation that may be required by like the lender. You want to get that all out of the way as quickly as possible so that the entire process will be smoother and you're less likely to have things pop up unexpectedly.
Yeah, it's true. So, I mean, pretty much just be as ready as possible and be as willing and as willing as you can and as communicative as you can and use your agent as much as possible. There's a lot of words that are a little difficult to understand. So if you don't have the time to go through all the financial statements to put them in the revenue form, the revenue form is this paperwork where you put in all of your financials. And so people get really overwhelmed by that format, rightfully. So have your agent fill it out for you. If you aren't able or if you're finding it like it's a little bit too much, just ask your agent to please do it. Just provide them with all of the paperwork and that's what we're there for. We're there to support you and to help you in every step of the way. And if that means, filling out every piece of paperwork for you, that's what we'll do. Because
Yep.
you have a full-time job and our job is to help you and support you on this purchase. So we are there to help you. I know I am there to help you.
Yeah.
So
And you really want to make sure that, and I'm not saying this to tout us, but you really want to make sure that you're working with people, especially in New York City, where you have primarily condos and co-ops. You want to make sure you're dealing with people who are familiar with uh, those type of properties, that the lender's familiar with them, that the realtor's familiar with them. Because if they're not, it's really going to, cause bumps in the road. It's not going to go as smoothly usually, because there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes that, as a buyer, you don't see us doing. But there's lots of documentation and lots of back and forth between the lender, the co-op, all of that. And you need to have people that know how to move things along and work with, these different co-op boards and associations for condos and lenders that know what they're doing when it comes to those type of properties.
And quite frankly, going back to the beginning of not only knowing who you're dealing with, who you have representing you, but also it goes back to the basics of dealing with person to person. Quite frankly, I sometimes I send little treats to the managing agent.
Yeah.
Like last deal I did, I sent them a box of chocolates, and then the deal before I sent them like some cookies because they work really hard. They're often underappreciated, and if you can have whoever's representing you be on the good side of the person that is going to be responsible to make sure that everything's submitted in a timely manner, then that's a good mood. And it's a good opportunity too to let people know that they are appreciated in the work that they're doing. So I think it goes both ways, right? It's important to know how the professional that you are choosing to represent you or to deal with handles the professional relationships, because sometimes people can be great client facing and not so great when they're handling other subjects or other matters. So I think it all kind of plays itself out, and helps for a smoother transition when you're able to display appreciation and consideration towards the people that are there to, they're there to do their job, but if you show appreciation and kindness, they tend to reciprocate that.
You guys got any questions for us? We always ask you, but no one ever has any questions. We're just that thorough.
We appreciate you showing up and supporting and learning, and hopefully you're getting a lot of value out of the calls and learning stuff from what to expect.
Do we want to talk about the home inspection and appraisal also? Or the document, or some of the other documents maybe that are required?
Like the Aztec agreement and let's talk about the appraisal.
Yeah, so
That happens around the same time.
yeah, the order that things will happen is after you're out of attorney review and you're going to order a home inspection. Once the home inspection's done and there's no major issues, we would order the appraisal. At the same time, some of these other things that Carolina was just talking about would be happening also. Any applications that need to be submitted or anything. And then, some of the documents that are going to be required, you're going to need photo ID, you're going to need bank statements, you're going to need, in many cases, tax returns, W 2s, pay stubs. If you're divorced, you're going to need a divorce decree to show whether you're paying any alimony or child support or receiving any alimony or child support. Any type of, if you had a previous bankruptcy, we would need discharge papers so we could see when that occurred, and if you're, because that could cause you problems getting the loan for the mortgage financing. So, like, all these are just a lot of types of documents that you're going to need. You're going to need letters of explanation for large deposits in your bank account, and that could be as little as $1,000 or $2,000. They consider a large deposit sometimes. You're going to need referral letters, like Carolina was talking about, for if you're going into a co-op or certain condo associations. Go ahead.
And can you talk about the requirement or gift letters?
You're going to need a gift letter. If part of the down payment is a gift from somebody, you're going to need a gift letter signed by both of you, and you're going to need to show where the money came from. So we're going to need their bank statements. We're going to need to show that they wrote you a check or transferred the money into your bank account. If there's large deposits in their bank account, we're going to need to show where they came from or get a letter of explanation for that. And a lot of the reason for this is, after in 2001, after the Patriot Act got passed, a lot of these rules and regulations went into place to track money from terrorism and drugs. So that's why these deposits, even if they're a couple $1,000s and it's a cash deposit, or it needs to be traced. They want to see where the money's coming from. So it's kind of difficult and a pain for a lot of people, including us. But that's what the law is and what the rules are, and we have to abide by them. So like I said, there is a lot of documentation that you need. The sooner you get it, the better. That's probably one of the most painful parts of the whole process is gathering all that stuff. Um, and then we would submit all that and get your loan going. Carolina would submit everything to the board or the condo association, and you'd go ahead and get your home inspection done. And then once that's complete and the transaction's going to move forward, we would order the appraisal.
Yeah, and then so in the appraisal, right? We've talked about the discrepancies. So sometimes when there's differences between the appraisal and the agreed upon sales price and what happens then, and depending upon how the contract has protected you or not.
Put your volume up, Carolina. They can't hear you on Facebook. On mine,
Is that better? On yours?
I could hear you. I'm waiting for Bill or Chris to
You
reply.
can hear me.
Bill Figueroa, if you're still there, can you let us know if you could hear Carolina?
Oh, you're right. I don't see my volume there. My volume's not showing up. Maybe. You know what?
We'll figure this out one day.
I think it's. Hang on, hang on. Hi.
I could hear you.
Okay.
Now I see your volume.
Yeah, now I see my volume moving. Now I hear an echo. Do you hear an echo?
Yeah.
This is like, talk, please.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Again? Oh, I know why. I know why. Perfect, perfect. We got it. We got it. There you go. This is it.
Yeah,
Can you hear an echo?
a little bit.
Okay, well, we're
I think
trying.
we're just gonna invite everybody to like your
Either,
Facebook page
yeah, maybe we should,
and
maybe
just
we
do
need
one
to,
restream from now on.
maybe we need to do that. Okay. So, what were we talking about? We were talking about the discrepancy between an accepted offer and the appraised value of a property, and how sometimes that becomes an issue, and how the way to prevent that is by sometimes having um, the agent be prepared and be able to provide comms for the appraiser, try to help that process. Sometimes that has to be disputed if there is a huge discrepancy, but that's something that you just kind of, depending upon the circumstance, is very specific to the value, is very specific to the what's in the contract, if you're protected, what does the seller want to do, what does the buyer have to do, can do, what do they want, like can they afford to put the discrepancy in cash on the table if the appraisal came back lower than the agreed upon offer, and all of that. George, do you have anything to add?
I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me? I know this volume is very challenging. Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Barely.
Is this better?
No.
No, not better.
All right. Well,
You can't hear me very much?
very low. Not in my ears. I hear you off my phone. And I don't
And your
wanna-
headphones are connected to your phone
Yeah.
or to the computer?
No, I'm connected.
To the phone.
No, I'm not listening on the phone. I'm listening through the
So you're
microphone.
connected to the computer.
Yeah.
You
Want to
can't
let
hear me. Oh,
everyone
yeah.
go and we'll play around with this?
Say that again? Yeah.
Because we discussed a lot anyway.
Yes. Does anybody have any questions? No.
All right. Well, we're going to play around with our technical.
We're going to figure this out.
And try and get this
Oh,
resolved.
thank you. Thank you so much. I can barely hear Carolina, Bill Figueroa said.